Today on the Relationship Revival Show, we have Carolyn Barnes joining us, clinical hypnotherapist. She's been a leading health and fitness coach with over a decade experience in the field. She's also a highly sought-after speaker, having appeared on national television on shows such as The Doctors, Good Morning America, and Fox News, and she was also featured on the cover of the Wall Street Journal. Her path to becoming a leader in the mind-body connection was not an easy one, as you're going to find out from listening to this episode. Carolyn nearly lost her life to chronic stress and severe hypertension, leading her to become a clinical hypnotherapist and dedicate her career to helping others self-regulate and overcome stress and anxiety. She's recently partnered with the American Heart Association, where she continues to promote mental and physical health and awareness. You're listening to the Relationship Revival Podcast with John DeBach, also known as Mr. Spirituality. That's me. I'm your host, giving you insights and guidance from over 10 years in the field of this amazing journey we call romance. On this show, I go over everything you need to know about how to get into a relationship, how to get the most out of a relationship, and sometimes even how to gracefully end a relationship without pulling your hair out and going crazy. And occasionally, I'm even joined by new and old friends who are also relationship experts to bring you guidance and wisdom with new perspectives. Thanks for stopping by. Talking with Carolyn Barnes, and you are our first hypnotherapist on the show, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
I will be honest, I know very, very little about hypnotherapy, so I kind of was excited when you were interested in being on the show, because it's an opportunity for me to learn more about how it works,
Sure.
who it's for, what it can help with, and kind of dispel any myths that people have about hypnotherapy. So first question is, how did you get into it?
Well, that's interesting, because when I was going through, life and our own, crap.
Yeah.
As a woman, we put everybody else before ourselves, which is how I really learned how to reverse that. But my kids were acting out. I got, as you know, divorced, but my kids were in therapy. And I sat in on their sessions, and the therapist basically said to me, nothing will ever change unless you address the unconscious mind. And what most people don't realize is that 95% of the day we're on autopilot and are programmed. And so I just started to really pay attention to what she said, and it scared me a little bit. And one day, on the 101, there's that College of Hypnosis on the Ventura Freeway, HMI.
Yeah.
And I just pulled over.
In Tarzana, right? It's in that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had tried a session before, and it was really interesting. But I pulled over, and instead of, getting a pro bono session from some of the, the students there, because we need to get our hours, I just went in and I just said, I'm doing this full throttle. I just committed. It was like something
just like that out of nowhere. You're just like, I'm in.
Almost like divine interception. It's just like, no, I'm in. I'm doing this. And I made a decision. I never looked back, and it's been the best decision I've ever made. It's been the most healing. Most people don't realize, that you're in hypnosis a lot of the day. You're going in and out. Have you ever driven to the supermarket and went, oh God, how did I get here? Can't believe I parked my car. You're in hypnosis.
Yeah,
but hypnotherapy, and what's really cool is that while driving over there, your thoughts are being hijacked from you. But with hypnosis, you're in control, and you are creating the learning state where you get to rewire neural pathways in a very relaxed, control, safe environment. And so, most people have this idea that hypnosis is like, woo, I'm going to make you quack like a duck and bark like a chicken or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's
like stage hypnosis done for like a comedy show or something. Right?
Yeah. And the bottom line is, you're never going to do anything you don't want to do. So the people who get up on the stage and stage hypnosis are those people who would do it ordinarily and have a desire.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, who's even volunteering, right? I mean, just by wanting to be on stage, they're kind of saying that they want to be there. You know?
It's suggestible. And so everyone is hypnotizable, every single person. And it's just about understanding and learning how you take in information and how you process information.
So what exactly, when you say it creates new neural pathways, what's going on when you're doing hypnotherapy? Walk us through what a session looks like.
Before I do that, John, let me share with you. Have you ever had an argument with someone where you know for certain that you're right and they're completely wrong?
I don't know. I've been married for over 10 years, so the certainty of being right is totally gone at this point. But
I just nod and go, "You're right, honey." But deep down inside, you know you're right. And
I've had those conversations.
Prove your side, and they get upset, and they prove their side. You go back and forth. It's a tug of war. It's exhausting, which is why you and I both go, "You're right. It's fine." Right?
Right.
Okay. The same thing happens between you and you, between your conscious mind and your unconscious programming. And what people don't realize, and I'll draw you something that's fascinating to me, but you can't really hear it or see it on a podcast, but hopefully this will.
I can describe what it is.
So imagine this circle.
Okay.
Is your mind. Okay. And everybody comes into the world a clean slate. But we have something hardwired into each and every one of us called the primitive mind. This is so fascinating when I really understood like this. And this is your.
So Carolyn, for those of you who can't see, she's kind of sectioned off like 5% of the bottom of a circle and has written primitive mind inside of it.
Yeah. And the primitive mind is responsible for your survival response, your fight, flight, and freeze response. So if you were to imagine during the caveman days, you had lions chasing you and you have that adrenaline and cortisol pumping in your system. So you had the energy to run as fast as you can away from the lion or fight the lion or you freeze and play dead, right? Mm-hmm. But today we don't have lions chasing us. Instead, we have our spouses who have to be right. Or we have our thoughts.
Right.
And so instead of calling it fight, flight, freeze, let's call this anxiety, depression, or procrastination, or overthinking, right? Analysis paralysis. Now, in psychotherapy, we call this the formative years. And in hypnosis, from 0 to 8 years old, I'm sectioning off this. You can describe this, but we call this the knowns. And
the knowns?
The knowns. Known experiences, life experiences. See, as children, we look to our parents or to authority, you know, rabbis, priests, whomever, teachers, doctors, to know how to be in the world. Yeah. And so we have positive and negative experiences. And let's say, for example, you grew up with a dog. Well, if you had a good experience, that's a positive association. As an adult, you may get a dog and have a positive association with dogs. If you were a kid and you got bit by your neighbor's dog, well, now as an adult, you may have the sense of fear and dogs will be afraid of you. So that would be a negative association. Let's take it a step further. Let's take my childhood, for example. I'm doing my math homework and my mom, she's loud, she's Jewish, and she's from New York. And she shouts to me, Carolyn.
The trifecta.
Yeah, right. Get in the car, Carolyn. So with the loudness, I freeze because my stress response gets activated.
Yeah.
I dissociate. So she takes that as a cue as I'm not paying attention, so she needs to be louder.
Right.
Disassociate even more. You're not paying attention, even louder. Right? So much so that she gets so frustrated, it creates such an emotional impact in me. It gets trapped in my nervous system. And now I made a belief. Something's wrong with me. Why else would this crazy lady be shouting? Something's wrong with me. This is my fault.
Sure.
Nobody ever corrects the child and says, hey, your mom has problem with patience. She doesn't have the skills and tools to communicate with you in the way that you need. So we're going to create a belief and this lens. Now let's take on the flip side my sister, who's very competent, incredibly resourceful. That's a positive. She has a belief that she's capable in the world. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, she made the belief that in order to receive approval, I need to be perfect. So now she struggles with perfectionism. So we create these beliefs about ourselves. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not this, that, whatever.
Sure.
This becomes our belief system. And here's where it gets really interesting. Okay. When you're 9 and 10, we develop the frontal lobes, the critical mind, and our logic, our reasoning, our willpower, our desire, the analysis. And so let's say you make a decision, and let's say you rationalize with yourself that I'm going to give up sweets, or I'm going to go do whatever it is. Logically, it makes sense. You reason with yourself. You exercise your willpower. But what people don't recognize is this is 5% of your thinking. And this is 95% of your thinking 24/7. So the moment your stress response,
so 5%
is conscious.
So 5% is conscious, and 95% are the beliefs that you've made unconsciously.
Yes.
Okay.
Those are not your fault. And some of them are good. I mean, and this becomes automated. Right. Some of them are great. I mean, you made a belief that you are humorous and funny because of whatever circumstances has happened in your life, you know, as a child. And therefore you are, and you believe, and there's a sense of certainty. And so these beliefs serve us, and then they don't serve us. And so we want to keep the beliefs that are really serving us, and we want to let go of the ones that aren't. And that's really hard to do. And that's where hypnosis and where I come into play. You know, talk therapy and talking to you, I'm talking to 5% of your thinking. But with hypnosis or NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we create a gateway from the conscious mind, your wishes and desires, to bypass the critical mind that goes, nope, I don't know anything about that. That's uncomfortable to believe that I'm capable. We bypass that, and we go into the knowns, and we basically update the computer software of your thinking and behavior to make it more congruent with what it is that you actually desire and want to move towards. See, most people are moving away from, and that's fear, right? That's our stress response. Most people are in survival mode, which is where I lived a long time, and it caused a lot of health issues for me. So,
the fear mode, the survival mode?
Yeah. When you're in survival mode, you know, we normalize stress, and our baseline becomes here. And in order for us to recognize that we're stressed out, we really need to feel triggered.
Yeah. So you kind of build up this fake tolerance, and you're doing damage in the background. And then, you know, for you to kind of wake up, you need to get a heart attack or some kind of crazy serious issue that has to come up, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what does a session look like? What is hypnotherapy? It's great background. For those of you who can't see the circle, you know, the 5% at the top of kind of what we know from 0 to 8. And there's your tiny primitive brain at the bottom of the circle taking up, you know, 2%. And then the rest of it are these beliefs in the middle that we've kind of unconsciously made. That's kind of how she drew it out. It was really kind of interesting to kind of look at the mind that way. And I think a lot of people, when I'm doing sessions with couples, would see this to be true. I mean, when you are having an argument with your husband or your wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, the kind of knee-jerk reactions of you not being able to contain your temper, or, you know, feeling like you have to defend yourself instead of, you know, or that you have to win an argument as opposed to kind of coming together to come to a resolution. All those things are these beliefs and survival tactics that you've grown over time. And I have to break through those on a cognitive level when I'm doing kind of these counseling sessions. And then I use similar tools. Like, so I use meditation as a tool to kind of try and get that into the heart. But I'm curious how hypnotherapy and how it works to kind of reprogram that part of your brain. So if you can walk us through what a session looks like and what's going on, behind the scenes, that would be super interesting.
Well, I'll share a little story about how the benefits of what we're talking about here are from a perspective of a couple. So let's take my husband, for example, okay, or my partner. And I got this incredible news. I was so excited, so enthusiastic. And I wanted to share it with him. And we're driving and we're on our way to yoga. And I'm driving and I'm sharing this enthusiasm. And he's nodding and texting at the same time. And I'm thinking, oh my God, are you kidding me? You're texting and can't you see how enthusiastic? And so my brain started to narrow in its focus. And I started to think of all the other ways I felt unsupported by him. And I started to pinch off and close off in my chest. And it got into my old belief system. I'm not worthy. I'm not important and whatever. And I stopped it. And a little voice came out on this side. And it said, I notice you, Carolyn, and I'm very excited for you. And it started to praise me and it started to acknowledge me. And I felt seen, heard, and understood. So that in less than a couple minutes, internally, my not only stress response was deactivated, but the flow of energy went back in. My heart started to open back up. And I didn't even need to have a conversation with him. In fact, the conversation with myself was so valuable, validating myself. That was all I really needed. And what's interesting is when we come from a place of having our needs met, we're not in the emotion, so that it's from that place I could then communicate with my partner. Hey, I'd really appreciate if I'm telling you something that's important, that you'd share the importance with me so I feel supported. But when we're in the place of the emotion, doing the talking, we're in our distorted, limiting beliefs. And it prevents us from seeing all the other ways he is truly supportive and amazing, because it narrows it. And so how this would happen if I were, doing this. I did a session on myself a while ago, but in a session with a client, if they were to have the issue, it would be to recognize when your stress response is activated, because you'll notice tightening in the chest or rumination of thoughts, or, there's specific cues that tell us. And when those cues are activated, that is the time to pause and take space. So the neural pathway may have a knee-jerk reaction to defend or to retreat, fight, flight, freeze. So we either want to fight for our point of view, we want to run away and avoid it and shut down, or we just give up and say, you're right, and it's not worth fighting, and we become apathetic.
Right.
And that discounts the self. But if we can give that perspective and we can hold space for ourselves to recalibrate the emotion, then we return back to a place of wholeness. I know I'm going kind of down a rabbit hole here, but it's from this whole
following you
place. It's from a place of wholeness that the conversation can then be had with the partner.
It sounds great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how does hypnotherapy get you there is the question.
Sure. So now what that looks like in a session is, after we do the cognitive portion, the talking and the reframing and understanding what the goal and the intention is with the client, what we then do is create a very relaxed state where the client is in complete control over how relaxed they'd like to become. They're navigating this. And I just help facilitate. And it's in this relaxed state that we enter into that slower brainwave frequency. From 0 to 8, children are already there. They're like sponges. They're in a theta brainwave state. So we recreate it through a state of relaxation. And we go into the belief system. And if there was a belief, I'm not good enough, or my point of view doesn't matter, or whatever the belief is, we identify that. We release the energy around it. Emotion is energy in motion.
Yeah.
And when a person can appreciate that emotion is not good, bad, right, or wrong, it's just the body's response to something, then it sort of let go of the shame around the emotion, because it's just energy that we think we need to keep to protect ourselves, but it hurts the body. And if we can appreciate that I'm going off on a tangent, but stay with me, our heart beats by itself. We don't have to do any work. We can relax knowing that work is done for us. Our breathing happens all by itself. We don't have to do any work there. And our body processes emotions all by themselves. If we can let go of the judgment or having to do any work, then the body can process the emotion. We allow the body in the session to process this. And then we form the new neural pathway and the new way of behaving. In the past, you may have had a knee-jerk reaction and behaved a certain way. What would you like to do instead? And imagine, and it's through the imagination that we begin cultivating a new road, a new neural pathway in response during the time in future events. And this really builds self-esteem from an internal place, because when we can recognize that nobody can make us feel a certain way, that's within our control. And it's through the acknowledgement and the realization that we're safe to let go of the repressed emotion and trust the process, that the body can process emotions. Get out of the way of it. Then you start validating the self in a whole new way. And that's the deepest form of self-acceptance. That's really accepting. And you don't have to like what you're accepting to be true. Nobody says you have to like it. But do you need the tension? Yeah. Can you still breathe not liking something? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that letting go. Yeah.
And so people, when they come to you with hypnotherapy, do they often need help kind of figuring out the goal first? They just think that their symptom might be, I have a lot of anxiety, or I'm fighting a lot with my partner, but they don't even know exactly what they need. So is there a discovery process of finding that goal? Is that like step one?
Well, step one is really feeling like you have a handle over your stress response. Because until you feel safe with self-regulation and really truly understand how to self-regulate, the deeper work is going to feel overwhelming. And so handling the anxiety and really understanding what anxiety really is, it's a signaling system, and how to manage that is just the first part. And so that in and of itself creates a sense of confidence when you feel more in control over that. And then we can graduate to now what do you want? Until you are so if you think about your anxiety or the stress response being activated, you're in survival mode. That's not the time to create or to be tuned into what it is you desire. You're protecting your life. It's black and white when the stress response is on. So we first teach how to control the stress response, let go of the fear and let go of the emotion without the judgment. And once there's more management in there and there's a place of wholeness, then you're in more of a receptive mode to better tune in. And when we can go, and we could do this all, some clients, I can get to this in one session. Sometimes it takes multiple sessions. It depends on how it's very personal. And so it's from that quiet, still place that we can better tune in to our truth and what it is that we truly want and desire and gain clarity. And so there's lots of different ways I go about doing that for a person. And if you think about stress and tension or anxiety is who we think we should be. Relaxation is who we really are. And if we can appreciate that the most important thing is to relax, especially not liking what's around you or what's happening, but that you can relax knowing that no clowns with machetes are coming after you. You're safe to relax in not liking something. Then the answers will present themselves. See, most people are trying to figure it out. And because they're figuring it out, they're up against roadblocks of who they think they should be in figuring it out. But when we relax, we reconnect to that whole part of ourselves so that sooner or later, what we really desire and want are like little whispers that we start paying attention to.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Really interesting.
Yeah.
So how long does a session usually last? And, you know, how long does it take to get into that relaxed state before you start kind of unpacking stuff?
It's very dependent on the person. If somebody is, needs to really be in control,
Mm-hmm.
I meet people where they're at. And so I'm good at what I do. And so, I can get a person to relax because I understand how the brain works. And so if you meet them where they're at and they're already there in a narrowed focus, then it's about meeting them narrowed focused and then expanding their awareness at the rate and speed that's appropriate. So it's a hard question to answer, but I usually am able to bring people to a relaxed state very quickly within 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And only when there's rapport and a feeling of safety will somebody feel safe to do the deeper part of the work. So I honor that,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For sure, you have to build that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Trust.
Are sessions usually like an hour, hour and a half? What's the typical?
The
like,
first session is usually longer, but I say an hour, and sometimes if time permits and somebody's really making on the verge of a breakthrough, then I'll go over the time and we'll break through. Because
right.
breakthrough, if we can appreciate, we've made our beliefs at some point in life. They're not true. They're what the child made in order to survive in the environment or to make sense of the world.
I mean, I'm thinking about it in terms of my own life now. I probably have, I might book a session with you. I have some pretty unhealthy relationships with food and comfort that need to be broken for my own health and exercise. I got on a great kick for like a good year where I was eating healthy and exercising, and I lost a tremendous amount of weight and felt great, but it collapsed with COVID and right before COVID actually.
Sure.
And, and now when I eat something, I know I'm like, I'm really eating it because I feel loved when I eat. And it's like, it's not a healthy, and I feel like hypnosis or hypnotherapy will probably be a good thing to kind of rewire the brain. Is that a correct assumption? Things like smoking or eating healthy, like you can kind of tap into those things, right?
Well, if you think about it, as a kid, you may have made the belief that this is comfort, this is how to soothe yourself. So the strategy to comforting yourself works. You are successful at that strategy.
Right.
Do you want to keep that strategy? Is that the only way to comfort yourself? No. But it's the way that surefire way in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
So it's about creating a new neural pathway of other ways to soothe and comfort yourself and go, what do you really want? Well, to feel comforted and soothed.
Mm-hmm.
You've just put a meaning to food that does it for you. But if what you really want is to feel comforted and soothed, wouldn't it be nice if somebody can just notice that you need attention and need to feel comforted and soothed right now? And I wonder which part of you can give that part of you the attention that you really need, because that's what's needed. And how you want relief. We just are calling it food.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may find there's a natural resistance in there.
Yeah.
That's the energy in charge. So in the hypnosis, we go in there and it's like extracting a tooth, having a root canal, but we release, at the root.
Mm-hmm.
You can't put in a new tooth unless you clean out the root. Right?
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
what we try to do. We try to do new behavior, but until the belief is changed.
So bringing this back down to relationships, the people who listen to the podcast kind of, are always looking to relationships. What would you say is the most important takeaway for maintaining a healthy relationship? Now that you've gone through this hypnotherapy process so many times and you see it, what's the glue?
Here, this is what it is. In the past, I would have thought, he needs to go to counseling. I've done my work. I know what it is. But when we can appreciate that triggers show up to teach us something really about ourselves, and it's the relationship that we have between our conscious awareness and the part of us that needs support, our programmed self, the relationship between you and you that needs the approval, the support, the whatever it is. When you can learn how to unconditionally love and appreciate and respect the self for all the good, bad. See, we are not good, bad, right, or wrong. Behavior, needs shaping. How can we unconditionally love the person, ourselves? If we can get to that place, everything else will fix itself in a relationship. You'll have more compassion for them being an asshole when they're just triggered. They're in their own limitations. And we don't take things as personally.
Yeah.
Before we clear out these beliefs, we feel like a victim and wounded.
Right.
Really,
I couldn't agree with you more. That's kind of the step one whenever I deal with people is, how do you fill yourself up with love? Because if you're depending on another person for it, guess what? They're going to fail. I mean, that's just, people are people and they have flaws and they have a bad day. And so you have to figure out how to do it on your own, whether it's through hypnotherapy or meditation or spirituality. I mean, I don't really care how people do it.
Yeah.
I just, that's step one. That's, if you can't find it in your own body, in your own mind, then you're kind of at the mercy of what's happening around you, which is essentially calling yourself powerless, which is not a good place to be.
Correct. So it's about really going into the internal control panel and recognizing you hold all the power and it's all perception. I mean, without going down too many rabbit holes, it's unconditionally loving yourself seems like an idea or a thought to a lot of people. In hypnosis and through the process, you're really reconnecting to the part of you that needed it. So it's like going in there and holding space for the child self who needed the love and support. And can you imagine reparenting yourself in a way that lets you feel courageous, confident, proud, accepted, loved unconditionally, capable,
Right.
we need to learn how to do this with ourselves first, because it'll make us better parents and better partners.
That's great. It's a great message.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of shift a little bit. I know that you've done some work with the American Heart Association.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got connected with them.
Sure. Well, before I became a hypnotherapist, I was a health coach for well over a decade, and I did a lot of television shows on Good Morning America, The Doctors. And when I was starring on a television series for ABC, my blood pressure had as a weight loss and fitness coach, my blood pressure skyrocketed to 210 over 180, which meant I was on the verge of a heart attack or a stroke.
Yeah.
And the paramedics were there.
Very seriously high.
Yes. Came rushing over to me. And I'm in the ambulance on my way over to the hospital and freaking out, not about if I'm going to die, but really, what are they going to think? Are they going to fire me? And my head used to be a whole lot of a mess, which really was leading to a lot of hypertension. And it took me a lot of hospital visits and almost nearly losing my life for me to wake up. And so, we don't need to wait for some extreme event for us to wake up and start paying attention to our health. So I partnered with the American Heart Association in hopes to spread awareness, to really teach people that your body's the only place, Jim Rohn says this, your body's the only place you have to live in. So how can you respect your body and recognize it's the vehicle that we're using to experience the world around us. And so, having overcome severe hypertension and premature heart disease, they asked me to partner with them. And so we're raising funds for the American Heart Association. And I'm just trying to share awareness about how to start listening to your body and the cues, because especially as a woman, I'm paying attention to everybody else's cues around me and meeting everyone else's needs and not paying attention that this rapid heartbeat or like, oh, I think I'm going to pass out. I normalized that,
Right.
Let me have a glass of wine. Let me distract myself. And that's what we do. We avoid things. We numb ourselves, whether it's food, whether it's wine, shopping, whatever.
Right.
Because it's a coping mechanism for our survival. But when we instead push through the discomfort and recognize the discomfort has a right to exist, it's energy that's just simply in motion. And I learned how to train myself, how to just accept that these feelings are uncomfortable and my body has a right to process them. And so that's the real message that I want to get out there.
Well, thank you so much. If you're interested in working with Carolyn, you can find her at carolynbarnes.com, CarolynBarnes, carolynbarnes.com. I'll also put the link for her fundraising for the American Heart Association in the show notes and on the website. So you can go and contribute and help out that very, very worthy cause. Thank you so much for being with me and sharing everything. I'm probably going to be interested in booking a session with you myself. I was so swayed there. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Carolyn.
Oh, thank you.
If you're interested in learning how to get the absolute most out of your romantic relationships, then you're in luck, because I have put together a free workshop or masterclass, if you will, about 3 secrets that people in happy relationships have discovered. You can view the workshop at mrspirituality.com/3 secrets. Again, it's completely free. Just go there and watch it. It'll help you on your journey, give you some wisdom, some things to think about. The website again is mrspirituality.com/3 secrets. That's mrspirituality.com/3, the word secrets. It's all yours. Enjoy.